And hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardenville, Oklahoma. Appreciate so very, very much you being with me. Hey, listen, let me remind you once again, please hit that subscribe button. As of Monday, I think it was, maybe it was yesterday. Um, I'm at 9,500 and some odd uh, subscribers. What's my goal? My goal for this year is to reach 10,000 subscribers because that means that more and more people are coming to understand, to appreciate, to adopt the reality and the truth and the power of God's faithfulness to keep His word. And in a time in which we just hear from every quarter. You know, somebody asked me just recently, and I won't take long on this. Somebody asked me just recently if I believe that unbelief was on the rise, if there are more unbelievers today than ever before. And no, I don't really believe that. Honestly, I don't. And the reason I don't believe that is just simply because of what I'm doing right here this morning, and that is filming. Sorry about that. Uh, okay, let me get this. Okay, and what I mean by that is the reason that some people believe that unbelief is more widespread today than ever before is that we hear more about it. We have more technology. You know, YouTube and Facebook is just full of videos of unbelievers, of skeptics, of Muslims and Jews, of, unbelievers. And because there are more voices, more actively hostile voices, people have the tendency to think, oh my goodness, there's just nobody believing anymore. No, it's not true. It's not true at all. The very fact is, and look, on Facebook, there are some Facebook pages that I know of personally that are preterist, and they have 15,000 and growing daily subscribers. I'm a little jealous. Not really. I praise God for that. You get the point? Belief is actually growing and spreading. Now, look, it's certainly true in a lot of the mainline denominations who actively and openly say, well, we all know that Jesus' predictions failed. He probably wasn't even really raised from the dead. So, but nonetheless, hey, he's a great guy, so let's follow him anyway. What utter asinine nonsense. I cannot believe people would do that or say that, but they do. Paul had a different view. If Christ is not risen, your faith is in vain. You see, folks who believe that Jesus failed, they don't believe he was resurrected, and they certainly don't believe that he came back in the first century. They have no foundation of faith. If they are ever submitted to persecution, they're out of here. They have no root. They have no reason to be a Christian. None. Okay, I got to get off my soapbox here. Okay, so yesterday I shared with you how this glorious picture of the face to face is a marital image. You know, God divorced Israel. He was going to remarry Israel. God removed Israel, sent her off into exile, which was spiritual death. He would regather her and remarry her under a new covenant. Now, I asked you a question, and I hope that you've pondered it. Yahweh said in the book of Hosea, Yahweh said he would remarry Israel under the new covenant. Now, just a really brief statement or two right here. What was the symbol and the sign of Yahweh's marriage to Old Covenant Israel? What was the temple? It was a visible symbol of Israel's relationship with Yahweh. So what did that mean when the temple fell? It symbolized a destruction. It symbolized a divorce. That's certainly what Hosea is talking about. Okay? And listen, many scholars, Stevenson, I think his name was, in the book Power and the Place, on the importance of temple in the ancient world. He talks about how important the temple of Israel was to the psyche, to the mentality of Israel. And he says something like this. The temple in the psyche of Israel was so important that the destruction of Israel called her very existence into question. It challenged her election. It called her very being into question. I think he's exactly right. Why? Well, because when God divorced Israel, he destroyed the temple. He did that in 586 BC as a symbol of their separation from him, as a symbol of their alienation, and as a symbol of their death in Babylonian captivity. Now, I hope that you glean from that kind of where I'm going. Because while there was a visible ontological reality to their death, it wasn't death itself. Their separation from the temple, their separation from the land, their exile in a foreign country was the ontological reality, but it pointed to the greater non-visible reality. What was the non-visible reality? Their spiritual death, their spiritual alienation from God. Do you catch the power of that? So while there was a visible, physical separation, captivity, bondage, that was a spiritual alienation lying at the root, lying at the foundation. Now, make no mistake, the ancient Jews and even many modern Jews, and certainly the dispensationalists in our world, they believe that the Bible teaches a literal physical regathering. My book, Israel 1948, Countdown to Nowhere, calls that view into question. That says, the view that says, 1948 was the physical restoration of Israel to the land. That is a sign that we are in the last days. It is proof positive that the rapture is near. Well, that was 1948, and this is 2025. You know, that's well over 70 years ago, if my math is right. It is, because I was born in 1949, and I'm 75. So my math is pretty close here. Okay. The point being, ladies and gentlemen, God promised a regathering of Israel, a epi-synagogue. As I shared with you yesterday from Isaiah chapter 27 and verse 12, from Isaiah 52, at the time of her remarriage. And that remarriage, that regathering, would be her resurrection. Now, here's a question to ponder. If her regathering was a physical regathering, then since the regathering was her resurrection, then should not we have seen physical resurrection of Israel in 1948? Do you catch the power of that? We are told, oh yeah, physical regathering, physical resurrection. Oh, no, no, no. Folks, that misses the whole point. Exile, alienation was death. Separation was death. Regathering was reconciliation and forgiveness and resurrection. But I don't know of a single person in all of the world that would even suggest or try to suggest that there was a physical resurrection in 1948. But ladies and gentlemen, if there was a regathering, if the focus of a regathering is physicality, then of absolute biblical logical necessity, that would mean a physical resurrection in 1948. Since there was no resurrection, then you cannot, a physical resurrection, then you cannot argue that 1948 was the fulfillment of prophecy. You're going to have to back up and say, well, okay, there was a physical regathering. We're still waiting for the resurrection. That's not how that works in Hosea 5. That's not how that works in Isaiah 27. The time of the regathering, the time of the regathering is the time of the resurrection. There is no regathering, and then 2,000, 3,000, 20,000 years later, a resurrection. You just got to catch the power of that, ladies and gentlemen. So then we come to Jesus, the Messiah. And I want you to notice something, and I'm almost out of time here. I'm only going to be able to touch on this. But remember, we're talking about here the episynagoge. We are talking about the end time fulfillment of Sukkot, which would happen at the day of the Lord and the sounding of the great trumpet of God. Isaiah 27, 12, and 13. That's the great episynagoge. It's the sounding of the great trumpet for the episynagoge. I hope your mind is running ahead to the time of the sounding of the trumpet. In Matthew chapter 23, Jesus, standing in the temple, said, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that kills the prophets, and you stone those who are sent unto thee, how often I would have gathered you together. Episynagoge. As a mother hen gathers, episynagoge, her chicks, but you would not. Now ask yourself the following question. Do we have a single solitary example of a biblical text in which Jesus, when he was in Galilee, or Jesus when he was in Judea, went into the villages there and said, hey, everybody, I want everybody to meet me in Jerusalem. I want everybody to leave your homes. I want you to come back to Jerusalem because we and you are being regathered. What kind of gathering did Jesus have in mind in Matthew 23:37? You know, it wasn't physical. It was a spiritual, new covenant gathering in which Jesus wanted to gather his people to himself in a covenantal, spiritual relationship. We've got a whole lot more on this. Listen, don't forget, send me your suggestion for a Friday uh, responding to the critics. Let me know what you'd like to see or hear, and I'll consider it. Okay? Thanks again for joining me here on Morning Musings, and I'll visit with you hopefully on Friday. And if I don't hear from you, if I don't pick a subject between now and Friday, I'll come up with something. Okay? In the meantime, I'll see you there.